which has now come out and been proven to be the case. But yet, for some reason, the judge in that case decided there was no mark and there was no reason to look at the marks or photos. Again, at the box factory, they found a suitcase, which I don't know if you've seen that picture. There was a suitcase, and in that suitcase was very weirdly, according to Rob's testimony last night, he said there were lots of photographs of children, girls, I think mostly, and oddly some phone numbers, a great bunch of phone numbers. They didn't say. I don't think Rob knows who they, and in fact, I don't think he's got phone numbers, but the police obviously have those phone numbers. I don't know if they're for mothers of children, or I don't know, or for paedophile or PDFs or whatever it is. You know, I don't know if they're. Again, this is something that I'll be exploring more over the coming year or two, and I do think this case isn't going to be closed anytime soon, Shaun. But I do think we're coming towards the end game.
Could you explain the significance then of the insurance document?
Yeah, that's right. Well done for getting all this stuff, by the way. So yeah, this is interesting. This is very interesting. So this is something that I do know about. It's not in my book, but it will be in the next one. And this links to you may have read that in my first book I published that he attended the so-called Dragon Festival in Orkeva, which is in the Alpujarras Mountains of Granada, not far from the Costa del Sol. And this festival is where basically effectively the world's New Age travelers go and party for what used to be about 2 weeks. You know, they'd arrive a week before and then they wouldn't leave for a week afterwards. And the police just didn't know what to do. So they just sort of let them stay there. And if you see the photographs of this event, it's staggering because it's sort of, as far as the eye can see, wall-to-wall caravans and Winnebagos. I mean, it looks like a sort of gypsy festival, like the Apple, what's that fair they have in England where they all go, the horse fair, Appledore horse fair, whatever it is, but for kind of New Age travelers. And everyone had a sound system, and they were pumping out sound all the way through the night till 6, 7, 8 in the morning. I remember Chris Stewart, who lived up there, who's driving over lemons, the Genesis drummer, said all he would hear for like 3 days or 4 days was just bang, bang, bang. Anyway, Christian loved going to this festival and went certainly in 2007 and 2008. And this document here, and of course, what's interesting is one of the witnesses in the case, Helga Bushing, who knew Bruckner very well. Helga, bless him, said he's now unfortunately not very well, living in Italy, but he's a decent, really decent guy. And I mean, that's all relative because he's been in prison lots of times for theft and drugs, so I don't know how decent he is. But anyway, the point is, I believe him when he said that Christian confessed to him that he took Maddie from the apartment, and he told Helga Bushing at this festival, the Dragon Festival in 2008, March. They said last night, April. It was March, in fact, that she had not screamed when she was taken out of the apartment, and Helga clearly saw that as a confession. And Bruckner, having realized he'd told Helga this, the look of horror on his face, he immediately kind of freaked out and walked off. And what Helga said in the court actually recently, and we'll say again in the MADDY case when it comes to court, was that he, in the middle of the night, got up and left and vanished, took his Winnebago and off he went. And so that document you had up there, I'll just quickly explain it, proves that, and he denied he was there, but proves that he was actually at this festival. So at least it backs up Helga's claims. The document shows that his Winnebago was in an accident with a Porsche, a local Spanish-driven Porsche by a woman in a petrol station just coming out in Orkeva at the time. And it's got Bruckner's signature on it. He's confirmed it. He nudged another car. I think he took off the wing mirror. Certainly scratched the door. I'll have to check my notes, but definitely that happened at the time of the Dragon Festival. So he was 100% there. And again, I know because we found evidence we think was in his van and him at the year before. So that was just in the run-up to Maddie going missing, being snatched. He was there again because he was traveling around a lot with this Winnebago VW van, and he took it even though the owners didn't want him to. He took it to the festival. So he was a regular there with all these people.
All right, viewers, I am here with John Clarke, and he's the author of a book that's absolutely terrified me. Don't read it late at night. It is harrowing, about Christian B. And the link for that book is in the description box, as is John's website. So if you've just joined us, I'm going to do a quick poll. Put a 1 in the chat, viewers, if you managed to watch the Channel 4 documentary that was released last night about Madeleine McCann and Christian B. Put a 2 in the chat if you've not yet managed to watch it, just so we can get an idea of how many of you saw it. Me and Jen were up till midnight watching it. John, is it also the case that one of his vehicles had a compartment in it that you could hide a child in?
Very much so. I believe it wasn't just one. I believe it was a number of vehicles that were adapted to carry not just potentially children, but drugs, primarily moving drugs around across borders. Let's not forget that moving from Portugal to Germany and back, he would be going across various borders, and you could, of course, be picked up at any time on a border. So he had to have these compartments. But in particular, he had this one Winnebago, and there was a fascinating chat I had with the father of one of his girlfriends, a woman called Nicole Fellinger, who he was sort of living with on and off. Not long after, well, actually, he met her before Maddie went missing. At Christmas 2006, he had a leaving party from prison, and I don't know whether anything they certainly struck up a good friendship. Whether anything actually happened sexually, I couldn't say, but they certainly got a very special relationship. Around the time that Maddie went missing, certainly she'd separated from her partner Matthias, and Christian was sort of moving in on her, and they became very close. It's fairly well documented that while she was there, Christian often turned up in the house where she was obviously living with orphans. She was looking after these orphans from Germany, these poor kids that were brought in who were 13, 14, 15, who had been abused, most of them, or certainly, if not sexually, certainly physically abused, and had difficult upbringings. And of course, they were living in her house, this rather creepy house that she was renting in the hills about 45 minutes inland from the Algarve. And of course, Christian, this is his paradise, isn't it? Children, abused children, he could hang out. So he regularly hung around at this house in Foral. And in particular, he had this big Winnebago, which he again bought from a robbery where he'd made a fair amount of money along with this lady. And again, this is pretty well catalogued. She was brought in for questioning and over this. And he pretty much mentioned, he confirmed it to a lot of people. He hasn't been prosecuted for it, but his name's been brought into the investigation. And this Winnebago was parked up inside the house in Foral, where these children, these orphans, were living. And what's more interesting is that Nicole went to pick up her dad, Dieter, from the airport in Faro when he was flying over to come and visit her. And so she went to pick him up, and she left her children in the garden with Christian, might have been the house, to play. So he was effectively babysitting her children. Yeah, mind boggles. So anyway, so when Dieter arrived at the house, he said the first thing he saw was Christian and his young granddaughter sitting on the lawn with Christian sort of playing with her on the lawn. Yeah, I know, horrible. And so then he had this very weird conversation with Christian B, or Christian Brueckner, where he told him that he had this Winnebago, would he like to have a look around? And of course, Dieter was fascinating, this huge vehicle, and he kind of took him on board and showed him around. And there was a sort of like almost like a dance floor at the back, and there was a circular table, a dining room area, and showed him the bedrooms. And he was very proud. And they said, "Oh, and I've even got a space that's big enough to smuggle a small child." And it's so he's like, Dieter was like, "What? What did you just say?" So he said it's big enough to smuggle, a huge take marijuana. He told him he smuggled grass in it, marijuana. I mean, he told his potential father-in-law, a father he'd never met, a guy he'd never met before, the father of his then girlfriend, that he was smuggling drugs and had a compartment big enough to smuggle a small child. Now, was that just a slip of the tongue? You have to kind of question, first of all, that he had it. Secondly, that he even said that. And there's the other question, you know, because there were these two agencies that were bringing these children over from Germany. We're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children were coming over at the time to Portugal. You have to question, was he bringing some of these children in his vehicles? Was he working with, because these agencies were dodgy as hell. They got investigated, shut down, fined. It turned out that they were totally unregulated. And so therefore, was he part of the whole operation? I'm told that she was definitely part of it and closely linked to it. But was Christian helping in some way?
So it seems like he was kind of giving clues here and there, like the statements that he dropped, the one you just cited, and also, you know, when he said that Maddie kept quiet. But also, if you've got a load of incriminating memory sticks, why on earth would you bury them under a dead dog? Why wouldn't you just burn them and throw them in the river and completely destroy them? He actually left them intact under a dead dog, which he probably knew that, you know, if they ever brought a cadaver dog out, it would hit on that.
It's really, really interesting point, Shaun. I mean, they do say, don't they, that criminals always like to keep mementos and keep things. And, you know, you just wonder, these are things that he's been working on for a long time. They're obviously close to his heart. We don't know exactly what's on all these things, but I can tell you there's lots of stuff, and it's pretty sickening, a lot of it. And you just, I mean, he left things in various places. In particular, unfortunately for him, he left a hair on the bed of his last victim, this 72-year-old woman that he tied up and raped and filmed in the most disgusting circumstances. So he did leave things accidentally and deliberately. Clearly, those things that he left underneath the dead body of Charlie were there because he wanted to work on them again, and he obviously treasured them. Unfortunately, I don't know if you're aware of this. When they raided his apartment, his kiosk in Braunschweig, they picked up a camera and a couple of other memory sticks. And on the camera were some photographs of a 5-year-old girl that he was molesting at the time, who was the daughter of a friend of basically a friend of his daughter, who he molested. And in the photographs, you can see apparently not the most horrific stuff, but you can see he's clearly doing some molesting. And unfortunately, those photographs appeared in the hall that was found at the box factory, at this you know, where they found these memory sticks. And unfortunately, because they tried him over that case with the 5-year-old and found him guilty, and he got 18 months, they couldn't try him for any of the other stuff found on any of those memory sticks, because under German law, you can't use the same hall again. So there's a kind of technicality there. So yeah, I mean, the mind boggles, Shaun. So there may be loads of other kids that he abused, and other people and other kids on those things, but they can't. The police apparently can't prosecute over any of it.
Just what they showed at the box factory was so disturbing. I mean, he had a mattress there, as if that's where he was doing his evil deeds, on this filthy mattress, and then the kids' toys, and then why so many little girls' swimming outfits? Wasn't it like 70 of them?
75.
Grief.
And he also had masks and fancy dress outfits. I mean, if you look at my photos that I got from the book that I took 4 years ago, you can see there's a lot more than mattresses. He had his oil. He collected petrol. He stole a lot of petrol, diesel fuels. He kept a lot of the petrol there. I actually found a couple of what effectively, I'm pretty certain, are shallow graves that were dug up. I mean, they look like shallow graves. So whether they are is another matter. But they are the exact right length for a shallow grave that they dug up, and they clearly had to have big, industrial tools to pick up the concrete initially. So whatever had been there had been concreted over. So, but it's really interesting. You find these sort of odd shaped. Again, people have to look in the book. They didn't show them last night because I think they've now been filled up. But again, I've got those pictures in my book, and in the next book, I'll be putting the pictures of the circular stone circles that he made at the Arade Dam that I got before the police got there and did their huge search a year ago, thankfully. But yeah, these pictures here, this is fascinating. This is this suitcase that they found. And, again, apparently there were loads of photographs of children in it. I mean, I'm just suggesting, maybe looking at it again here, this could be his painting stuff, because, you know, he liked art and he did sketches. So it could just be that this is those his paintbrushes and his pencils in there, you know, giving him, and or it could have been stolen. It could be it looks like it could be an art case almost, right? You know, until I'm actually in front of the police or with the police and they say, well, they explain it, I can't really say exactly what was in there, what is in there.
So my instinct was that these pictures of girls were girls he was either going to target potentially, or he was fantasizing over.
Yeah, again, at some point I'll be explaining how he did. There were other people, and there were links to him targeting children, yeah, and monitoring them, and yeah, exactly. And these these are fantasies and snatch fantasies that he wrote about at length. We heard one in the trial that was read out in the trial, and in the trial, when the British detective, you may have noticed that Mark Draycott gave his evidence, and of course it wasn't meant to be about Maddie, but they brought in the Scotland Yard detectives, and they just said, look, we've got lots and lots of emails that he sent. He tried to delete lots of them, by the way, but he wasn't able to delete the sent file. He in those emails, he clearly says, you know, I'm going to send you this, I'm going to send you that, I'm going to do this and that. He did send lots of child P and other stuff to different people, and they actually announced a bit of this mother-daughter in the trial. They actually talked it through, and you heard it came out what he claimed and what he said. It's horrific. I can tell you now for a fact there are a lot more of those, and again, at some point I will be revealing that and more of that. But it's not pleasant to watch, Shaun. And you've got a young child now. You've got a baby, and I've got 2 kids. It's the most harrowing stuff to have to deal with. And in a way, this is a bit like some therapy. You know, talking to you and being able to kind of get it out there. And I don't want to talk to my wife about it. You know. Yeah, this is fascinating. So this picture here shows supposedly chemicals. Now, again, I don't know if it's a stretch that they made last night, suggesting that, sort of linking it to kind of chloroform. Again, I don't think they have actual proof there was chloroform. I think the police might have it, but maybe it wasn't announced last night. I don't know whether the journalists working on it last night were able to prove that. But these are substances found in the back of the Jag car that he drove backwards and forwards to Portugal and backwards and forwards to Germany. This sort of very dark plum-coloured Jag. And the idea was that, and certainly in one of his this sort of R scenario, the mother-daughter R scenario story, he does talk about using ether, I think it's called ether, on a blanket, on a rag, to nullify them. And you know, again, I can't see there, and I don't know because I haven't got the actual full detailed report, because they haven't released this. Although you saw a bit of it last night, the photos, we didn't get the full detail of what the police had, because they still haven't released that. We don't know exactly what chemicals were in there, but yeah, I mean,
what did you make of the Skype calls then? Because they were hinting that he may have been working with a network of PDFs.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was fascinating. That was a Skype chat that I had in my book that is with a man called Panic Spats, and that man, I can tell you, is an undertaker. And he is, yeah, I knows how to get rid of bodies, right? I know what you're thinking, but he was linked in and involved with Christian Bruckner, and Christian had a handle, Helga Wants Him. I think they didn't have it correctly last night, as I saw on the TV program, but which means Madness of Helga, which was his, like, he used the name Helga and this login, Madness, Mad Helga, and he talks about how he's going to snatch a child, a small child, something small. No, he's going to snatch something small, keep it for days, abuse it, and the other person's saying, wow, how would you avoid it? How would you avoid being caught? And, you know, he effectively says, by getting rid of the evidence. It's chilling. It's horrible. It's in my book, you know, the whole chat. It's horrible. It's horrible. And there are, again, I can tell you again, Shaun, it's if you like, a sort of exclusive here, that there are many, many more of those, which I hope to at some point, or I hope that will come out in the trial. I really, really hope that, you know, sometimes in many countries, you can have 30 bits of very good circumstantial evidence that prosecute and put someone in prison for the rest of their life without DNA, without a body. Clearly, it was helpful having his hair in the house of this poor woman, Dinah Menkes. But so, you know, I think that sometimes if you can place someone at a crime and they